Greetings, everyone, and welcome to a very special online event today. It's called Ignite Your Sacred, Wild, Willing, and Wise Energies, Shamanic Practices for Awakening Authentic Freedom, Courage, and Joy. My name is Stephen Dine. I'm the founder and president of the Shift Network, and today is a special blessing for me because we get to reconnect with an old ally who's taught for Shift before and has really been at the forefront of integrating a lot of deep shamanic perspectives with a modern way of living that is very free and wild and self-expressed. And we're going to get to dive in with her name is HeatherAsh Amara. She's a land steward, interfaith witch, and best-selling author, and has been steeped in many different lineages that we'll hear a little bit about today, which all flow into the work she's bringing forward now. So HeatherAsh, thank you so much for coming today.
Thanks so much, Stephen. It's so wonderful to be here.
Great. Well, I'm excited to dive in, and also want to let everyone know right up front that we do have a brand new program with HeatherAsh called Your Wild, Willing, and Wise Energies coming up. So we'll share more about that towards the end of the hour if you want to go further. So HeatherAsh, I'd love for you to share first a little bit about your personal backstory, which I always think is so important to get a context for the teachings you're going to bring forward, and really why the wild, willing, and wise work is so important.
Absolutely. I had a very unusual childhood, and then I was raised in Southeast Asia and traveled around the world as a child and was exposed to so many different ways that humans can be and interact in different types of faith. And when I was 7, I had a really life-changing experience. I was walking with my parents down a street, and I remember thinking about my white shoes and that my white shoes were going to get dirty. And so that's where my mind was. And I looked up, and I'm holding my dad's hand, and I look up and I see this wild child walking towards me. She was barefoot, she was in rags pretty much, really messy hair. And as this young girl was walking towards me, we were about the same age, we looked at each other and everything else dropped away. And I felt this immense love, this immense wisdom that she was carrying, this wisdom inside of me. And then we passed, and everything was different. I realized that the separations that we so often create as humans is not there, and that there's this whole other world available. So I feel like my life from that moment has been this seeking of the wildness and the wisdom that we all contain and that we're part of. I've had many incredible teachers, including Vicky Noble, and my dear mentor and friend, Don Miguel Ruiz, who's the author of the Four Agreements. So my integration, we can say, is around the cycles and seasons of shamanic practices based in Europe, and the warrior and clarity and undoing the agreements of the Toltec work that's based out of Mexico. And I'm so grateful to be a voice and a experiential explorer of those lineages.
Really cool, your life path, and I'm looking forward to what you share about this. So let's talk a little bit about why shamanism is particularly an important kind of orientation for this integration of the wild and the wise.
It's such an important integration because shamanism is about bridging earth and sky. We look at it very simply. All earth-based traditions are about coming back home into relationship with nature, with the wild, with ourselves as wild. And that's the earth, the growth and the expression and the creativity of the earth, with the stillness and the wide open spaces of the sky and of spirit, and of bridging these two where our feet are firmly planted in the wild and our heart and our being is open to connection to the ancestors, to spirit guides, to our own intuition. And we have access to that stillness. And that's what we bring when we walk a shamanic path, when we're shamanic practitioners using these incredible ancient tools.
So I love that bridging, and maybe let's go a little deeper into the wild. So there's this reconnection with the earth and our intrinsic wildness that's vital. So what have you really found has been central to that reclamation of the wild in you that you witnessed in this little girl at age 7?
Part of it is honoring the cycles of life, that there's places of birth and expression and expansion, and then there's places of letting go and death and release. And in my connection to India that I had as a young child, and that has continued my whole life, there's this remembering that there's a wholeness when we also invite in letting go and release and the darkness and death, as much as the light and the brightness and the vision. So there's that coming home to the messiness of life and to the beauty, and learning how to hold the contradictions. That is a big part of, I feel, my work in the world and what I bring to people.
What kind of practices have helped you cultivate that?
One of the biggest ones is around creating ceremony of being in relationship to the elements. And there's four main elements. All traditions honor different elements. The four building blocks of life are air, fire, water, and earth. And they're all wild. So we can have air as like our breath and a gentle breeze, but we can also have breath, air as the tornado. We can have fire as the candle and the warming light, and it can also be a wildfire. Water, same thing. So each of the elements has this quality of nurturing, but it also has this quality of destruction. And as I've learned to be in relationship with both aspects of that and realize that it's life moving, and sometimes to make changes in our life, we need the gentle breeze, and sometimes we need, the wildfire that takes what is ready to be cleared, or that we get to learn how to dance in a new way with what we have.
So how much you designed a ceremony that really honors the wildness of those elements and marks a ritual transition, as an example?
That I love calling in the elements, and it's something that I do so naturally now after playing with them so often, that there's a relationship that we can create with them, where we're inviting in the air to help us have clarity and vision and to see beyond our own blinders and limitations, that we can invite in fire to bring up our creativity and our passion, to remind us to keep warm and nourishing to ourselves. That there's a way that whenever I wash my hands, like I do this naturally in my life now, whenever I wash my hands, there's an honoring of water and the release and the surrender that water can remind us to bring into our lives. And the same thing with the earth, which is the body and the physical manifestation, that we can bring that ceremony into our lives every time, say, we get dressed, every time that we go out into the world and say hello to the trees and to the animals. And that there's this relational connected quality that starts deepening in my life, I know, as I deepen my intimacy and my relationship with the elements.
Love that. Do you find that you're going into seeing which elements you feel most resonant with, which ones you feel kind of resistant to? Is it important to go into the ones that you might have some natural resistance to?
Absolutely. So often we're like, I like this element. I just want to like luxuriate in this element. And yet often where our growth is leaning into the qualities that maybe feel more unfamiliar or that might even feel scary. So there was a long time where I realized I was what felt like out of balance because I have a lot of fire. I'm very sparky and like, yay, and exploratory in that way. And I was like, I really could use more water in my life. And using then, how do I bring in that quality of flow and surrender and gentleness, made huge impact in my life. And it's such a fun, simple way. I think that's part of what I love about the elements and doing shamanic practice, is that we can take really big concepts and create simple actions in our life that anchor it into our daily life. That it's not a concept, that it's a way that we're guiding ourselves from love to find balance in a really physical and emotional and energetic and mental way. So we're bringing all these qualities of ourselves together.
Can you give any examples of those kind of daily practices that really help that integration you're speaking of?
Yes. One of my favorite ones, really simple practice, and I think of this as a connection to our wild, our willing, and our wise. So, our wild is that connection to nature and that we are animals. We are these incredible instinctual, there's a lot of knowing that we have in our bodies. And so, a really simple practice is that I do every single day is I imagine putting roots into the earth wherever I am, even when I'm on airplanes or I'm driving. There's ways that we're connecting energetically to the planet, to the earth. And I imagine putting my roots in and connecting with the wild, inviting nature, inviting the elements, inviting the beauty of the land to support and hold me. So that imagine of putting our roots down and then to bring that energy of earth up into our bodies and center it in our heart. And for me, our heart, when we're coming from our heart, that's our willing, that willingness to show up, to be present, to say yes to life, to be in the mystery as well from a heart-centered place. And this is our humaning. And so the trunk of our body, then when we call in the energy from earth into our body, that's settling into our human and learning how to human better, how to do life more in a present, open-hearted way. And then the visualization that I close with is putting the branches up to sky and opening into intuition, guidance, allies, connecting to the infinite or to the mystery, to possibility. And those branches then are antennas. And then I reverse that where I then imagine pulling sky down through my being and putting it into the earth. And as we do this, when I do this every day, it brings me present and helps me stay open hearted with whatever might be happening in the world around me. And there's a then connection to both instinct and intuition that's centered in the heart rather than the mind. So that's one of my favorite daily, hourly practices.
I love that. I hadn't really associated willing with the heart in that level. That was a really interesting insight. So it sort of becomes this sort of willing becomes the integrator of both earth and sky and sort of the higher levels and the more earthy elements too.
Yes. And it becomes this beautiful, everything gets then brought through the heart and through that willingness. I'm willing to show up. I'm willing to learn how to be more present. I'm willing to love. And it doesn't mean we know how to.
Mm-hmm.
Willingness is so powerful because it's, I don't know, and I'll show up.
It seems like you have a bit of a different vision of wise as well. I mean, there's a lot of associations we have with wisdom, but it sounds like there's like a much more kind of grounded, embodied version of wisdom that you're speaking of when you describe the practices.
Yeah, for me, wisdom is when we open beyond our own personality and our like day-to-day anxieties and open into our intuition, open into our own stillness. And that's why I loved using the sky as a representation of wisdom, is that when we're connected to our wisdom, we're connected to the vastness and a bigger view that whatever challenges we might be navigating in our life, there's always a way that we can open into it's okay, that long view, and connect to our stillness. And in that stillness, our wisdom drops in that vast sky place. There might be clouds, there might be thunderstorms, there might be rainbow, like whatever is happening, there's this infinite possibility place that we can tap into that then tunes us into like you said, like a grounded, what's needed here? How can I bring my intuition grounded into the earth to then take the next action, to really listen to where I can bring my presence, my patience, because wisdom is so much about patience, right? That willingness to open into possibility.
Let's circle back with wild, and I know that you also talk a lot about how wild accesses different dimensions of yourself than like creativity and playfulness. I wonder if you share a little bit why that reclamation of the wild is so central to some of these other qualities that really enrich our lives.
So often we lose that wild part of us because we think as we start becoming adults, oh, I'm not allowed to be wild anymore, or it gets shut down early. And I've worked with so many people that have thought, oh, I'm supposed to be serious now. I'm supposed to adult and I have to let go of the wild. And that wild part, I think of it as our wild child. So if you watch little kids before they're socialized, they are exuberant and playful and exploratory. And there's so much joy that children have and wonder. And it's not something that we have to leave behind. It's actually the energy, the creative spark that gives us juice, that gives us this sense of yes to life. I think about it almost as the spark that makes life worth living. And so when we claim it, when we realize, oh, I don't have to leave that behind, I can actually bring that forward with me and reclaim my own wild. And that, sometimes we have a fear of if I tap into that wild, then I'll be unpredictable or people won't like me or I won't have any boundaries, like I won't know how to contain myself. What I've seen is that when people really tap into their wild, what comes back is creativity, is this joy of let me try things, let me let life be a little bit messy, let me have more adventures in my life. And what comes back online is fun. And especially when hard times are hard, our rational adult self is like, fun is not what you need. But really, that lightness and that laughter is what helps to break open the stagnation and the fears and the anxiety so that we can navigate hard times with a sense of lightness and find our way through and recognize it's not, we don't have to wait until the hard times are over or till we retire or until everything in our list is checked off. And then we can have joy in our life again. Then we can have more of a sense of play. In order to stay current and creative in response to life, we really need to bring our wild back. It's not something to wait for. It's actually critical, I think, to the transformation that we're in the world right now.
Really great. And I wonder if you can connect this with the sense of adventure as well, since I know that can get a little stagnant with people once they're, in their adulting phase as well.
Yes. It's so helpful to break our patterns and our habits. And that's what adventure does, is it puts us outside of our comfort zone. There's a pull in humans where there's a part of us that wants safety and comfort and calm. And there's a part of us that wants adventure and to throw everything up and to explore. And often we leave towards the comfort. And so one of the things that I love helping support people in is how to be more adventurous in a way that breaks apart the stagnation and the stuckness in our lives and puts us into different situations. It's something that the Toltec call, one way to look at this is what the Toltec call not doings. And a not doing is something that you put your 100% of your energy towards, but without an outcome, that there isn't an outcome that we're going towards. So a not doing is something simple to break a pattern apart, which might be wearing clothing that you would never usually wear and letting that be an adventure. Doing something like driving to work a different way every day. So sometimes we think, oh, an adventure must be like huge, like I must leave the country and I must go someplace where nobody else has been, which is great. And we can create adventures every day and start to see our life as an adventure rather than as something that we just have to do right. Adventures give us permission to do things differently and to explore who we are now. I love having adventures. And for me, part of that is getting myself out of patterns that, like, I feel safe and comfortable here. And so I will consciously, like, let's do something that doesn't feel entirely safe and that I'm not exactly sure what it's going to look like. And I learned so much about myself. And it becomes a way to reignite our own hearts and our own sense of being alive.
I love that. Well, I know you want to also take us on a bit of an experiential journey today. So why don't you take this time to take us into a little bit more of an experience of what you're talking about?
Yes, we're going to do a little meditation. So if it feels good to close your eyes, you can close your eyes. And if it also feels good to put your hands on your heart, you can do that, or on your belly or on your lap. Let's feel what you want to settle into right now. This meditation is about coming home to ourself, the places that we might abandon ourselves, and how we can come back to a balance, to a place where we feel more free and playful in our lives, but that we also honor the parts of us that are scared and that are unsure. So imagine yourself someplace really beautiful in nature. And it may be someplace that you have visited many times before. It may be some place you've seen in a photograph, or sometimes something that just comes up in your mind's eye. Use all your senses to bring yourself into this environment where you feel safe, where you feel held, where you see beauty around you. And imagine that you're walking down a path. And that might be a path on a mountain or by a beach or in a field. So use your senses to notice where you're at, look around in your mind's eye, what's the scenery, and then bring in your senses. What are the sounds? Are there birds? Is there wind through the trees? Is there a river running nearby? So as you're walking down this path, listen to the sounds around you. Feel your feet on the ground. So with each step, feel the footsteps, feel your clothing on your skin, feel the wind against your face. And then notice, what smells do you smell? You might smell lavender or evergreen trees or salt water. Just notice, what are the smells? And imagine up ahead that you see a clearing. It might be a circle of stones. It might be a little grove of trees. It might be a circle of flowers or a dip in a field. And just imagine, as you walk towards that, you can see two beings, that you can see a wild child, free and playful part of yourself. So use your imagination to see, as you're walking, that you can see this beautiful, wild, happy, playful, joyous child self. Even if you don't feel like you had that in your childhood, what would you have been like if you had that permission? Imagine that being and say hello as you walk closer. And imagine that you walk in and you hold that wild child's hand, and you can feel that enthusiasm, that sense of freedom. And then imagine that you look over and you see another heart, another child, a part of you that feels scared, that is insecure, that doesn't feel like you have what it takes or that you're deserving. And so, what does that part of you look like? And it might show up as an animal. It may be a vision of your child self. Notice that part, because all of us have a part that's scared, that's insecure, that's tentative, that's unsure. So look and imagine that you're holding hands with this joyful, playful part, and that you can reach your hand out to take the hand of this fearful part. of this part that's scared, that feels insecure. Reach your hand out and take the hand of that being as well, that part of yourself. Connect. And bring in your heart, breathe through your heart into both of your hands to love fully, to be present fully, to show up for both of these aspects. And to imagine those two aspects holding hands. So that wild, free, playful aspect, reaching out and holding hands with that scared, shy part. And let them become friends. Let them connect and alchemize, and let something else open in your being, that you don't have to shut down the scared parts. You also don't have to push down the wild, that you can bring both of them up and love and hold and see both. And imagine that you turn to your wild child self and say, I see you. I take in your medicine and your creative flow. And imagine that you turn to that scared part, to that representation of the insecurity or the unknown, that you turn to that part and you also say, I see you. And that you let them know that you will bring your presence and your love here. So listen for a moment, one more moment, to what's the message of these two aspects of yourself? What's the message for you going forward? What's the guidance? What do you need now? So listen, open, and that message may come through as a voice, as a knowing in your body, as a symbol, or a vision. Open to what's the message, what's the guidance of how you can come home to yourself by embracing both parts. Beautiful. And thanking them. And imagine that you can bring both of them into your heart. You bring both of these aspects into your heart, giving yourself permission to hold with love. And then thinking this space and gently bringing yourself back into this place and this time. You can wiggle your fingers and wiggle your toes and just feel that sweetness in your heart of like, I can hold all of me.
It's all about reclaiming all of us, isn't it? It's that we are the full spectrum. So thank you for that. How do you recommend that we sort of continue that integration and holding of both dimensions moving forward?
One beautiful way is to keep going back to that visualization, even for just 3 days. That can help anchor it in, of go back and check in. Hey, how are you both doing? And imagine that you go and you open your heart and put them in front of you to have conversations. You can also journal, like say, okay, what does the scared part of me want to say? I'm going to write. What does the wild child part of me want to say? So those are a couple ways to integrate, and then just keep in that tenderness. It's so easy to get into our heads. And I found where the healing is when we can keep coming back to the vulnerability and the sweetness and the tenderness and the wonder of being human, all parts of ourselves.
Do you find that it's helpful to go to do things like shamanic journeying back to sort of, reclaim parts of yourself that might have been specifically split off during an experience, or maybe share a little bit about some of their practices that can keep deepening?
Yeah, absolutely. That there's often places in our life where we split parts off, or we're like, I'm not allowed to be that anymore. I'll share an example. I remember when I was, I don't know, I was probably 14, and I had my first boyfriend, and I was so excited. And then we moved. I moved like 12 times when I was a kid, so it was a little traumatic. And I remember calling up this young man and just very neutrally saying, I'm moving. And I hung up the phone and I was like, oh, this could be a problem, because I went completely numb. I could tell I just shut all my emotional content down because I couldn't navigate it. And so there's places in our life where we make choices because we don't know what else to do with our emotions or with trauma that's happening. And we can go back and do shamanic journey work, do energy work to find those parts and bring them back into wholeness. And sometimes that's part of why I love using the qualities of wild, willing, and wise, because they can give us they're doorways into ourself, where we
Mm-hmm.
can start exploring, where did I lose my willingness? Where did I lose my resiliency? Where did I lose my courage?
Mm-hmm.
Because willingness is courage. And then where did I lose my capacity to connect to my own intuition, to get quiet through that through that wise portal or doorway? And then same with wild. So they're good windows to journey to
Mm-hmm.
reclaim more and more of ourselves.
Are there elements from either the sort of Western European kind of more pagan kind of root systems or the Toltec root systems that you want to sort of bring into this exploration of how we can really reclaim this full spectrum of ourselves?
Hmm. So I'll start with the Toltec and then I'll bring into the European shamanism. That in the Toltec work, I consider that the warrior, that it's about really looking at where do we hold agreements that we believe, or stories that we believe that are limiting us. And so the beautiful thing about Toltec work specifically is that it's so energy based, of what am I doing with my energy? And I love working with people around this, because instead of being stuck in the stories and feeling mired by the story and our identity, we can learn to step back and witness, what am I doing with my energy? And how is my energy tied up in agreement or a story that might not even be mine? Because so often the energies that we have tangled in our being are not even our agreements. And we've tied them into, this is who I'm supposed to be, this is who I am. And many of them are very deep under the surface. And so that work of unraveling, of untangling, is really about pulling things up to be able to witness and then pull the energy out of them, to stop agreeing. But we first have to see what we're agreeing to, can be really helpful. So that's the work of the what I think about the warrior, and that path of learning about what we've done with our energy and reclaiming the energy. And then from the European shamanism perspective, I always think about the goddess energy, which is about doing more of what we love, having more ecstatic experiences, letting ourselves be held. And there's a receiving quality that is really important, that we find the ways that we're doing more of what we love. We're leaning into ecstasy. We're leaning into joy. We're giving ourselves permission. And that brings in more energy that can flush our system. So I love working with both, the sense of do more of what you love. What do you love? Do more of it. Give ourselves permission, as well as where are the agreements and the old energetic patterns that can get untangled, to start pulling the energy out of those things
Hmm.
through our awareness and our witnessing.
So it's interesting. I wasn't aware that the agreements work is a lot about the untangling from agreements aren't ours. I'd love for you to share a little bit more about that, since I tend to kind of like focus more on the high level agreements, the agreements that we're affirming versus the one we're letting go of, if you will.
Yes, absolutely. And it's so important to do both. And I feel like the doing more of what we love is affirming the agreements of what I want more of in my life. And I see that as half, really important half, but half, there's a whole other piece of using our life, being fully engaged in our life, to see where do I have a limiting belief? Because they're going to show up when we live our lives. And when we're willing to open, an agreement arises and we see something. And what one of the practices is to, let's see how to put this into, to make this simple, is that when we see a place where energy is tied up, it's about giving ourselves, being courageous to face it. Number one, being courageous to face it and to see it and to name it. And then to pull the energy out of it, to realize every agreement we've made takes energy. We're feeding it with our energy. And a lot of times we don't even realize that. And when we see it, when we can pull the energy back, and there's a lot of techniques to do that, but it's really about saying, nope, I don't want to agree to that anymore. And we pull the energy back. Everything starts to rewire in our system. There's so many places where we have emotion and story tangle together, and we get to learn how to untangle, to clear the emotion, and then to start to rewire and rechange the story.
That's great. It really makes a lot of sense, and it gives us a little window into some of the deeper Toltec perspective on energy. And when you're sort of circling back with the sort of Western European shamanism and working with goddesses, I wonder if you would share a little bit more about that practice of actually cultivating relationship with specific goddess energies, archetypes that that can then infuse us with a different quality of being.
Absolutely. I love this. So wild, willing, and wise are archetypes that are actually based on these European shamanic archetypes of the maiden, the mother, and the crone. And they're connected to the moon cycle. So the waxing moon, when the energy of the moon is rising, is about our wild, the maiden young energy. And I just made a decision as I was studying, I've been studying these energies my whole life, of wanting to make them less gender and also less age. And so that's where wild, willing, and wise came from. So wild's the maiden. And we can look for archetypes of wild. And this is something that in relationship to goddesses, there's a lot of wild goddesses. And so when we start to embody or let them mirror to us those qualities that maybe we've forgotten or we're scared of, we can, through looking at movies, at songs, at different goddesses, let them reflect to us and pull those energies out to us. Let them talk to us and remind us. And it's what I call ripening, that these energies can help us ripen the quality inside of ourselves. So if I want more wild, I'm going to look for where's the mirror and the reflection of wild. And let me call those goddesses and those energies in to help me ripen that inside of myself. There's also the willing, which is the mother energy, because who's more willing than a mother or than a parent, right, to do whatever is needed for the child. And the willing energy is about growing and birthing something. And we're expanding beyond just our individual life and experience, and we're wanting to nurture and grow something else. And there's lots of reflections of the goddess that we can take on to help us be more courageous and more willing and do hard things and show up even when we don't think we can. So to find those reflections. And same thing with the wise, that there's the beauty of the crone, of the elder, and that we both have those. We can look for the mirrors and the reflections of those outside of us, in our ancestors, in the image, in goddesses and images, and we can also access that energy inside of us. So that's something that I love also working with the goddesses, is to find the energy of those archetypes in us, because they are in us. They're not just outside, they're also immanent. We get to call them forward. It's so fun to have the dynamic of being in a relationship with being ripened by these energies and these archetypes.
I love that you're weaving both this archetypal perspective and from Western Europe with the Toltec perspective. Really great stuff. So HeatherAsh, I'd love to spend some time, since it's been really rich already as an hour, spending time about talking about how people can go further with this work, because I really think it's an important synthesis you're offering that really can ground you in a much more full spectrum spiritual path. So we're really blessed that HeatherAsh has agreed to teach a brand new program for Shift. It's called Your Wild, Willing, and Wise Energies, Shamanic Practices for Balancing and Embodying Courage, Creativity, and Compassion. You can find it at the URL wildwillingwisecourse.com, wildwillingwisecourse.com. It's a bit of a tongue twister, but it does, if you just type those in, you'll get it. And so it's a 7-week program. There are no prerequisites for this. And it's really just if you feel drawn to go deeper into these lineages of practice and open up to this more full spectrum of yourself. So HeatherAsh, I'd love for you to share in your own words about your intentions for this program and what people will come away with, and then we'll walk folks through the modules.
So excited about this course. What the intent for this course is to help people really come back home to themselves and have access to these 3 qualities of wild, willing, and wise, so that there's more creativity, there's more courage, and there's more compassion. Those are the hallmarks of those 3 energies. And we'll be exploring how not just to think about that, but how to embody it in our lives, how to really embody more curious play, more courageous and like, yes, I can do this, that feeling sense in our body, and more stillness and open to both our compassion and also the deep wisdom that we all have within.
Great. Module 1 goes into invoking the wild, willing, and wise. Meet the magical guides within to achieve balance and enhance your ability to take steady action.
Yeah. So we'll start with an introduction of where these energies are in our body. We'll do a really beautiful, deeper meditation to access these energies, and also to have a model, a comprehensive model about why these energies are so important in our lives and how they help us to know when and how to take action. So often we can feel frozen or paralyzed of, I don't know what the next step is. And when we access these 3 magical guides, they start showing us how and when and where we can engage in our life in a really different way.
Module 2, examining your relationship to the river of life, learning how to navigate your blessings and challenges to align with your direction and purpose.
I have found that the metaphor of the river, and that the wild, willing, and wise are guides on the river of life. And on this river of life, there are eddies, there is fast water, there's places where we have to paddle, there's places where we get to rest, where the waters are calm, and we can become more skillful. So we'll talk about the metaphor of the river as a way to start language in relationship to ourselves, and we'll create a whole map of where am I on the river of life. And it's really fun. There's a little self quiz, and there's a way that we can get to see where we're at without then taking ourselves really seriously or judging, but to actually open into starting to plot a new course forward that is more joyous. And that's an adventure. That life really is an adventure.
Module 3, integrating your wild, alchemize fear and hopelessness to face challenges with playfulness and curiosity.
We will then do a deep dive into the archetype, the energy of wild, and our guide, and sense into where have we squished our wild, are we deficient in wild, or maybe where are we in excess wild. And so there's a way that we start tuning these energies inside of us. And often when we're deficient of wild, we go towards fear. We stop ourselves. And so we'll learn how to unburden and work with fear so that fear becomes possibility and play and exploration.
Module 4, embody your willing, nourish bravery and sustainable power as you let go of what's not serving you and step into your purpose.
With the willing module, again, we'll have a deep dive into the quality of willing. And this is where I'll bring in more of the Toltec tools of how to get steady, how to bring our energy into a focus so that we can bring our courage and know how to stay connected to ourselves while we also open into what's needed next. And there's a a real power that we'll gain from this module.
Module 5, identifying with your whys. Cultivate calming compassion to trust yourself and embody inner peace.
As we step into the whys module, we'll talk about what is true compassion for self and how we'll learn really specific tools around how to calm our nervous system, how to get quiet, how to stop filling ourselves with noise so that we start emptying out in a way that we then create a container where we're deeply patient and loving towards ourselves. And that then emanates, we'll really work with what it means to be unconditional and drop into peace within.
Module 6, rebalance your wild, willing, and wise, building the confidence and cultivating the tools and support you need to untangle challenges as they arise.
There'll be a whole wonderful practice here where we'll be exploring the places that we've tangled our emotional content and our stories, and how to untangle, how to create more spaciousness inside of our being so that we can access our wild, willing, and wise, clear old emotional content that we're carrying. Because so often it's like this backpack, we're carrying all this weight with us. We'll learn how to put the backpack down and start to clear that emotion so that we can then look at the stories and untangle them. And it's like untangling when you've got a knot in your hair, gently, calmly, with presence. And that'll be a lifetime tool.
Module 7, integration and unconditional living, being guided by your heart, compassion, intuition to take the right actions when needed.
Then this final module, we'll do journey work and exploration into how to anchor in our intuition and understand the difference between what I call a strategy and our intuition. What is places where this is familiar, but it's actually not that good for us. So we'll be working with what I call long-term nourishment and short-term nourishment. Short-term nourishment is, what do I want right now? Which is powerful and important. But what takes us into wisdom and right action is long-term vision, being connected to the ancestors and allies, and opening into what does this being need long-term to nourish and sustain and bring forth their gifts.
Really great stuff. Well, again, the whole program is laid out in detail at wildwillingwisecourse.com. In addition to the 7 90-minute live sessions with Heather Ash, you're going to get time to ask your questions live. You'll also get recordings of every session, both video and audio, as well as word-for-word transcripts to work with, study, and highlight. There are weekly exercises for exploring and learning at home. There's Facebook community to support you and deepen your experience, as well as small group time to connect with other participants, really from around the world. And on the page, there are a number of extra bonuses that are designed to enhance your journey. There's a video conversation with Heather Ash and Banafshe, another favorite shift teacher, called Being the Divine Feminine, Resting into the Divine Mother. Want to share a little bit about that conversation between the two of you?
Oh, it was so good. Banafshe and I love each other so dearly. And we really talk about what it means to be in relationship to the divine feminine, to embody and be that expression of the goddess of the divine, and also how to let ourselves be held by something larger and what that can mean in our lives and in relationship to being in relationship to the world. It's such a tender, beautiful conversation.
Love that. Sounds gorgeous. The next bonus is a PDF workbook from Heather Ash called all about the Wild, Willing, and Wise Warrior of the Heart workbook. You want to share a little bit about the workbook that accompanies the journey?
Yes, absolutely. There's a practice we'll be learning through the program that's called the Warrior Heart Practice that I broke down into Wild, Willing, and Wise. And so that PDF is from a book that gives, again, a map that we'll learn how to walk through it together. And that, again, will be a lifetime practice that you'll have with you. So at any time that something comes up, that there's a struggle, you have a physical way to work yourself through it with love.
And finally, there's one special bonus you get if you sign up by midnight tonight Pacific time. And this is our way to give you an extra encouragement to take the time now and go through wildwillingwisecourse.com and really tune in and see if this is the right next step for you. And if you do move forward today, you're going to get a whole 3-part video series from Heather Ash called Be Brave, Conscious Courage and Creativity. So
Yes.
let's share a little bit more about Be Brave as the video series.
Be Brave is a that three-part series for us to really drop into what does it mean to be a conscious being and to hold ourselves from a new way. And I talk about judgment into discernment and victim into vulnerability. How to raise our courage, how to raise the energy of our courage. And I use the metaphor of the fire walk of how to raise more energy to cross the coals, because I love fire. And then we'll talk about creativity and why creativity is everything in relationship to life. And when I talk about creativity, I'm not just talking about being an artist, but your life is your art, and how to be creative in relationship to obstacles or challenge, how to see the adventure of life as a creative being, as an artist of the spirit.
Beautiful. Well, what a great extra bonus and a great reason to really take the time to tune in and see if this is the right next step. And if you do move forward today, you're going to get that special 3-part video series, Be Brave. So we're very excited about this program, and we've kept the investment very accessible for you. It's just 3 payments of $128, or you can save 10% when you pay in full with one payment of $349. The course is going to start December 11th and run Wednesdays at 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern. But even if you can't make the live times, you can still get the full value with the recordings, the transcripts, and the community as well. And there's some great testimonials on the page from people who have previously studied with HeatherAsh. Wonderful guide to learning how to love the self, deep and well organized, nourished and nurtured. Practice the insights I experienced in practicing these teachings is indescribable. Lots of great testimonials about HeatherAsh's work. And so you're in really good hands, and you're going to be drawing from multiple lineages to really better your life in a way that's much more free and grounded and open and embodied spirituality in many ways. So again, it's all at wildwillingwisecourse.com, wildwillingwisecourse.com. So HeatherAsh, really lovely to be with you. Thank you for this time and your wisdom and your joyfulness and deep insight. Anything that's still on your heart you want to share with folks who are considering joining the full journey with you?
The one thing is that I really teach with who's in the space. I just find it so important to be in relationship with the people that are there. And so I love doing live courses like this. And even if you're watching the recordings later, there's this connection to community and to being held and to being on an adventure together. So if it feels like a calling to you, it'd be such a joy to get to walk this journey with you and give you some more skills and tools to navigate the river of life, both when it's calm and how to rest into the calm, and then also when to paddle and how to paddle more skillfully on the river of life.
I love that metaphor, and it is a beautiful one as we go through the rapids as a species, and to really be able to navigate it with a lot of grace and joy and laughter, wildness, and wisdom. So thank you so much, HeatherAsh. Thank you all for joining. And if you'd like to go further, again, HeatherAsh's course is at wildwillingwisecourse.com, and you'll get that special 3-part bonus when you sign up by midnight tonight, which is the Be Brave 3-part video series. So thank you so much. Many blessings.
Thank you, Stephen.